Hey everybody, it's Lavender Town, and today I wanted to do a do this, not that on how to make your self-sona, or basically the cartoon personification of yourself. But first, a quick thank you to the sponsor of this video, Granado Espada. Granado Espada is an MMORPG that is free to play. You can play 3 different characters simultaneously and have over 190 characters to choose from. They have a nice fantasy European aesthetic and really pleasant classical music plays while you're playing it, which I think is really charming. If you're interested in any of that or MMORPGs in general, you should definitely check it out. There's a link in the description. Thank you so much for the support. Okay, so starting with the don'ts. In a rare situation, I've actually come up with 2 different varieties of the don'ts. Usually I only pick one, but I think with the self-sona, it's kind of complicated. There's 2 different ways you can go that I feel like might be the wrong direction. So the first direction is going way too simple, just going for that sort of white, marshmallowy looking personification of yourself. Now, this is not inherently wrong. There was nothing wrong with this idea. However, there are so many people using this persona now that you're just going to get a lot of really annoying comments from people asking if you're copying or something of that nature. And at this point, it really doesn't say much about you when you have so little detail on your character. On the other hand, though, when you go way too hard on the realism and detail, you can end up with a personification of yourself that's not really relatable and is hard to draw over and over again. So while the drawing on the right does have some good personality and some nice details, it's actually not a good representation of me as my sort of self-sona. Because in my opinion, your self-sona is only 50% what you look like. The other 50% should be your personality, who you are inside. And so while this is a relatively good cartoon representation of what I look like on the outside, I feel like it doesn't capture my spirit, if that makes any sense. Basically, both of these don'ts represent a far end of the self-sona that I feel like can hold you back a little bit. Like I said, going way too simplistic could just leave people to say that you're copying Odd Ones Out or any number of other YouTube animators, as well as not really representing you enough because there's just not enough detail there. While in contrast, the detail and reality focused one isn't truly a self-sona because it's just exactly how you look. It's not really expressing who you are inside, it's just a self-portrait. So for the do's, the first thing that I want to talk about is proportions. Now, you can do any kind of cartoon proportions you want, but I typically try to go a little bit simpler than my average style when it comes to drawing my self-sona. I want it to be extra cute and really easy and fun to draw, because this is something you're probably going to be drawing a lot, and it's going to become fairly permanent if you get any kind of following online. People are going to come to expect this version of you, so you have to make sure that it's something you really, really have a good time drawing. When I make her, I also try to make a little rubric in the corner of the rules of this character's proportions. It'll just make it so that I can draw her more consistently. You can see in the corner I'm also creating a to-do list for her head and her body. This will make more sense in a minute, but I think you'll probably understand what I'm doing. I'm basically trying to create a lot of different emotions and poses for this character so that I can use her to express myself in my videos when I need to. I also recommend creating a sort of uniform for your character. You don't want it to be too seasonally specific, and you want it to kind of look like a lot of your outfits that you tend to wear. I don't actually have a quarter-length sleeve shirt that has a heart cutout, but I do have a lot of quarter-length sleeve shirts and a shirt that has a heart cutout, and it just looks a lot like sort of a chimera of all of my favorite shirts. I also put on a pleated skirt because I wear pleated skirts all the time. So basically it's just a good representation of my general style. I'm using a brush that has no line weight, which is very unusual for me, but because I'm kind of making a sort of pseudo animation with this character, I wanted to make sure that she was going to look consistent, which means no fancy line weight for me. While it's totally fine to draw the head and the body together, I like to draw the heads and body separately so that I can show different emotions with different body postures, and then I have a whole bunch of combinations to create some interesting emotional states for this character. And just to be clear, I'm not actually making an animation. I'm just making a sort of set of expressions and emotions for my little persona to have. I'm doing little things like turning her head slightly, which again is something that you can only do if the body and head are separated. And I'm copy and pasting different parts of her and moving them around, redrawing different things so that she mostly looks consistent, but little things are changing. I think that looks the nicest when you're switching between them. You don't obviously have to make all of these different emotional states with your Selfsona. If you're someone who just mostly likes to draw and doesn't make any kind of video content, there's really no point, I suppose, unless you're using it sort of like a reaction image or an emoji or something. But this is a really good practice if you're someone who's wanting to get into animation, but you're feeling a little bit intimidated. I'm definitely trying to get more animation done, but I wanted to have a set of sort of reaction images of myself so that I could create these sort of half animated, sort of animatic intros, because I thought it would be fun and be a little bit more interesting than just having a still image while I talk. When coloring, I always go a little more consistent and saturated than you'd see in real life. For example, my hair is always pretty purely pink when I'm drawing myself, even though in real life, because pastel pink hair dye really washes out, there's a lot of times when my hair doesn't really look like this, a lot of times when it's more of a peach color or a rose gold or just straight up blonde because all the dye is washed out. It's totally fine to draw your persona as if it's based on the ideal version of yourself at all times. Here's just a sample of the different combinations I was able to make with the poses and faces that I drew in this video. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Check out Granado Espada in the description, and I'll see you guys next week. Big thank you to my patrons, including Cal Pompon, Kat Pupchino, Dr. Casket, Elizabeth Alban, HG, Hanuki, Hope Chilsum, JJ Jade, Blep, blah 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 blah, Matthew Kunke, Micah Dactyl, Okamore, Ollie, Rachel Singh, Sergeant Pendulum, The Artsy Moose, Ya Boy ST, Zixith, and Zoe Stardust.